Once upon a time, in a beautiful and ancient kingdom of Umuawurum in Igbo land, there lived two young women who were the best of friends. Ojugo and Adanna had been inseparable since childhood. Their mothers often joked that even before they learned to walk, Ojugo and Adanna would crawl towards each other and hold hands under the watchful eyes of the community. As daughters of Umuawurum, they grew up among red earth roads and lush green forests, where the air was thick with the scent of rain and the sweet aroma of blossoming odala trees. The kingdom of Umuawurum was known far and wide for its rich culture, colorful festivals, and the warm hospitality of its people. Umuawurum lay by the banks of a great river, whose waters sparkled like thousands of dancing crystals under the sun. Every morning, women in bright wrappers and men with red caps could be seen heading to the fields or returning from the stream with pots of water balanced expertly on their heads. The thatched huts and mud houses of the kingdom were decorated with intricate uli mural paintings by skilled women, telling stories of their ancestors. In the distance, one could see the Grand Obi, the king's palace, with its high walls and carved gates, standing as a proud symbol of the kingdom's history. At sunset, the villagers would gather in the central square, listening to the elders tell tales of heroes and tricksters, or watching youths perform the mesmerizing Atilogu dance to the rhythm of the drum and ogene gong. It was in this vibrant land that Ojugo and Adanna grew up, sharing dreams and secrets under the old mango tree behind their homes. From childhood to their early 20s, Ojugo and Adanna did almost everything together. In the mornings, they would walk to the stream, their laughter echoing through the forest path as they balanced clay pots on their heads. Ojugo was the gentler of the two, soft-spoken and kind, with a smile that could warm even the coldest heart. Adanna was more outspoken, always ready with a joke and fiercely protective of her friend. Villagers often said that the bond between the two girls was stronger than the strongest raffia rope. If you saw Ojugo, you could be sure Adanna was not far behind, and vice versa. They helped each other with chores, whether it was pounding fufu, weaving baskets, or carrying yams from the farm. The two friends turned work into fun with their constant chatter and songs. As they blossomed into beautiful young women, each had her own unique grace. Ojugo had big, expressive eyes and a quiet beauty that drew people to her. When she danced at festivals, it was as if an angel floated on earth, her waist moving elegantly to the beat of the Eba drum. Adanna was equally beautiful, with a lively sparkle in her eyes and an infectious laugh that rang like a bell on a clear morning. She danced with energy and joy, often leading other girls in spontaneous dance circles at the village square. Both friends were admired by many in Umuawurum, and their parents was proud of the young women they had become. Ojugo, the daughter of a palm tapper, learned humility and compassion from her modest upbringing. She often gave away her share of roasted plantains to children who had none, and she spoke respectfully to everyone, from the oldest elder to the smallest child. Adanna, the only daughter of a prosperous yam farmer, was generous too and had a flair for fashion. She loved to tie her bright George wrapper in stylish ways and design new patterns for beaded necklaces, which she and Ojugo would wear during special occasions. Together, they would sit under the moonlight, stringing colorful beads and giggling about the young men who tried to cut them in the marketplace. Ada, look at this one. Ojugo had teased one night, holding up a bead she had accidentally cracked. It's like some people in this village, fine on the outside, but just squeeze small and it breaks. Adanna laughed loudly, nudging Ojugo playfully. You, this girl, you have started though. Who are you talking about? Is it not that Ikemefuna that was following you about last market day? Ojugo covered her face in embarrassment. Which Ikemefuna? Biko, leave that one. He only wanted me to buy all his groundnuts. They both burst out laughing. Moments like this under the starlit sky defined their friendship, full of humor, trust, and an unspoken promise to always be there for each other. At the annual New Yam Festival, which was one of the biggest events in Omaworum, Ojugo and Adanna were always by each other's side. That festival was a time when the entire kingdom celebrated the harvest of yams. The king, known as Igwe Ochimba, would bless the new yams, and there would be feasting, dancing, and masquerades in the village square. Women donned their best attire, brilliantly colored wrappers and blouses, their heads crowned with gele or scarves, and their necks adorned with coral beads that glistened in the sun. Men wore their isiago shirts, the traditional lion head pattern tops or flowing robes, with red caps on the heads of those who were titled men. The sound of the opi, flute, and the beat of the ekwe, log drum, filled the air as children chased after masquerades that swelled in costumes of raffia and clothes. It was in this joyous atmosphere that the two friends would dance and make merry, sharing roasted yam and palm oil sauce from the same plate, and clapping for each other during dance competitions. Everyone in Omaworum knew Ojugo and Adanna as the pair of bright-eyed young women whose laughter was contagious and whose friendship was as steady as the rock by the riverside. Little did they know, as they danced under the orange glow of the setting sun at one of those festivals, their fate was quietly weaving a story that would test the bonds of their friendship, a story that would bring both joy and sorrow in the days to come. One bright afternoon, not long after the New Yam Festival, Prince Obidike himself came walking through the Omaworum marketplace. Prince Obidike was the only son of Igwe Ochimba. He was in his mid-20s, tall and strong, with kind eyes that reflected the wisdom and bravery passed down from his forefathers. Although royalty, Obidike often enjoyed mingling with the people of the kingdom in a humble way, learning about their daily lives. On this day, he wore a simple traditional outfit, a well-tailored isiagu shirt of deep blue with gold embroidery and a black cap with a single eagle feather tucked at the side. His presence still commanding respect wherever he passed. Villagers paused their haggling and conversations to bow respectfully and greet him. No, Prince Obidike, welcome our prince. Ojugo and Adanna were at the market that day, haggling over beads and fabric for a new blouse. They had saved up a little money and were excitedly picking out matching patterns so they could sew twin outfits. Adanna was busy bargaining with a trader over the price of a deep red fabric when Ojugo nudged her lightly. Ada, Ojugo whispered, eyes widened. Look, the prince is coming this way. Adanna turned to see Prince Obidike approaching, accompanied by two palace guards who followed at a respectful distance. Her heart skipped a beat. It was not every day that the prince walked right into the midst of the market crowd near them. She quickly straightened, smoothing her green and yellow wrapper and adjusting the coral beads around her neck. Ojugo also stood upright, clutching the cloth in her hands nervously. To their surprise, Prince Obidike stopped in front of the very small store the two friends stood. The trader quickly bowed, greeting him. The prince smiled and greeted the trader back before his gaze fell on the two young women. "Ah, I remember you," Prince Obidike said warmly, looking at Ojugo. "You danced at the New Yam Festival. Did you not? You were wonderful." Ojugo's cheeks flushed as she nodded. "Yes, Your Highness, I did. Thank you," she said shyly, her voice almost a whisper. "And you?" He turned to Adanna with a polite nod. "I remember your laughter. You were cheering your friend on, if I recall." Adanna opened her mouth, at a loss for words. The prince had noticed even her laughter. She managed a small smile. "Yes, I was. We always danced together, Your Highness. It is an honor that you remember us." Prince Obidike's smile widened. "How could I not remember? The joy you both shared in the dance was bright as the sun. What are your names?" "Ojugo," Ojugo said, curtsing slightly in greeting as was respectful. "My name is Ojugo, daughter of Maazi Bekwe, the pine wine tapper." She was so nervous she nearly misspoke. Adanna put a reassuring hand on her back. The prince chuckled gently at Ojugo's fluster. "Well met, Ojugo, daughter of Ibekwe. And you?" he asked, turning to her friend. "I am Adanna, daughter of Ichie Okafo," she said gracefully, referring to her father's title as a respected elder and Ichie in the community. Adanna was determined to appear as poised as possible. "Well met as well, Adanna," said Prince Obidike. He glanced at the fabrics on the store and the strings of beads the girls had already picked out. "It looks like you are both preparing to make beautiful new clothes. Such vibrant colors. I'm sure they will look lovely on you." "Thank you, Your Highness," the two friends said almost in unison, then exchanged a quick amused glance at speaking together. The prince seemed pleased. He picked up a string of beads from the store. It was a set of lustrous polished beads, the color of the evening sky. Turning to the trader, he asked, "How much for these beads?" The trader stammered an amount, clearly overcharging due to nervousness. Prince Obidike raised an eyebrow but paid without haggling, then handed the beads to Ojugo. "A small gift," he said. "These beads will suit you." Ojugo hesitated, eyes wide. "For me?" "Yes, for you," the prince affirmed. He gently placed the beads into her palm. Ojugo's hand trembled slightly at the unexpected gift. Adanna watched this exchange, a strange feeling stirring in her chest. A mix of happiness for her friend and something else, something like envy tickling her heart. She forced herself to smile. "That is very kind, Your Highness," Adanna said, hoping her voice sounded genuine. "Ojugo will cherish it." Prince Obidike turned his warm gaze to Adanna. "Of course, friends share their joy. Do they not? Perhaps she will let you borrow them sometimes." His tone was light-hearted. Ojugo found her voice quickly. "Adanna can even have some of them if she likes. Truly, it's too much for me alone." She tried to split the string to give half to Adanna, but the prince gently stopped her hand. "No, it is meant for you, Ojugo," he said softly, "but I'm sure you both will have many more beautiful beads in the future." The way he looked at Ojugo as he spoke made it clear to anyone watching that she held a special interest for him. Adanna noticed that look, gentle, admiring, and the tickle of envy inside her grew slightly more pronounced, though she kept her pleasant expression. After a few more polite words, Prince Obidike took his leave. moving on through the market to greet other villagers. As soon as he was out of earshot, Adanna grabbed Ojugo's arm excitedly. "Ah, Ugo!" She squealed in a hushed tone, her eyes wide with excitement. "Did that just happen? The prince gave you beads as a gift and was looking at you as if he likes you." Ojugo was still staring at the beads in her hand, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and disbelief. "Ada, I am as surprised as you. He even remembered me from the dance. Chineke, God is wonderful." Adanna smiled and hugged her friend. "My dear, you are blessed. First, you danced beautifully, and now the prince himself noticed you." She paused, then teased lightly. "Omalicha nwa, beautiful girl. I said it. Your beauty will blind somebody one day." Ojugo playfully swatted Adanna's arm, both of them laughing. "Stop, Joe. I don't even know what to think. He was so kind and humble." As they paid for their fabrics and left the market, news had already begun to spread among a few onlookers that Prince Obidike had shown special favor to Ojugo. By the time the two friends reached their compound, a few neighbors gave knowing smiles and asked, "Ojugo, when will we go to the palace for your wine carrying?" Hinting at a traditional marriage proposal ceremony. Ojugo blushed and insisted it was nothing, while Adanna stood by smiling but silent. That evening, under the fading light, Ojugo and Adanna sat outside Ojugo's family hut, talking about the day's event. Ojugo's mother had been overjoyed hearing that the prince spoke to her daughter, and she had prepared a special bowl of pepper soup to celebrate. Now the two friends sipped the hot soup from clay bowls as crickets chirped around them. "I still can't believe it, Ada," Ojugo said softly, staring into the distance. Do you think the prince could be interested in me? Me, just a village girl." Adanna forced a cheerful tone. "Why not? Are you not good enough? You are kind, beautiful, and hardworking. Any man would be lucky to have you, even a prince." Her words were encouraging, but inside, her heart squeezed painfully as she realized the truth in them. Any man, even the prince, would indeed be lucky to have Ojugo. But what about me? A small voice in her mind whispered. Would no one ever look at me that way? Ojugo reached over and squeezed Adanna's hand gratefully. "Nne, thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you. Thank you for supporting me. You are truly my sister." Adanna swallowed a lump in her throat and smiled. "We will always be like sisters," she said quietly. In the weeks that followed, Prince Obidike did not hide his admiration for Ojugo. He visited Ojugo's family compound with gifts of kola nuts and wrappers, formally greeting her parents and expressing his honorable intentions to court their daughter. Ojugo's father, Mazi Ibekwe, was flustered yet delighted that royalty would seek his daughter's hand, and he gave his blessing for them to get to know each other. The entire village buzzed with the news that Prince Obidike was wooing Ojugo. During this period, Adanna remained close by Ojugo's side, helping her choose outfits whenever she was to meet the prince and giving her words of encouragement. Outwardly, Adanna appeared as happy as everyone else for her friend. But when she was alone, she often found herself battling an increasing bitterness. At night, Adanna would lie on her mat staring at the ceiling, thinking about how drastically life was changing. If Ojugo married the prince, Ojugo would become a princess, eventually the queen of Umuaworum. She would live in the palace, wear the finest clothes and coral beads reserved for royalty. People would bow to Ojugo in respect. Adanna's mind conjured images of Ojugo riding in a royal carriage, waving to crowds, and Adanna standing amongst the crowd, just another face forgotten. She tried to push those dark thoughts away, reminding herself that Ojugo was like a sister. I should be happy for her, Adanna whispered to herself one night. She will be happy for me. I am happy for her. But even as she said it, hot tears slid down the sides of her face in the darkness. She felt ashamed of her envy, yet it grew each day despite her efforts. Whenever Ojugo excitedly recounted to her how the prince had written her a sweet note or how he promised to teach her to ride a horse, Adanna smiled and clapped, but her heart felt as heavy as a stone. She began to avoid spending time in public with Ojugo because of the constant remarks from villagers. Adanna, see your friend oh, don't forget us when she becomes queen. Or, Adanna, you will be chief bridesmaid on the wedding oh. They meant well, but each comment drove the wedge of envy deeper into Adanna's soul. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange, Adanna met with Ojugo by the riverbank, where they often relaxed after the day's chores. Ojugo was glowing with happiness, talking about how Prince Obidike had given her a beautifully woven basket that his mother, the queen, sent as a gift. She said she can't wait to meet me formally. Ojugo beamed, trailing her toes in the water as they sat on a large rock by the gentle river. Imagine, the queen herself already calling me her daughter. Her inside churning. She managed a weak smile. That's wonderful, she said quietly. Ojugo noticed the tone and put a hand on Adanna's shoulder. What is it, Ada? You don't seem yourself. Are you not happy for me? Please talk to me. Adanna took a deep breath. Part of her wanted to scream out her frustration and jealousy, but she couldn't bring herself to admit such ugly feelings. Instead, she forced a smile. I'm fine, my sister. I'm just tired from today's work on the farm. I'm very happy for you, truly. It's all happening so fast, you know. You will be busy with royal duties soon, and I'll miss our time together. Ojugo's eyes softened. I will miss it too, but nothing will ever stop me from being your friend. You will come to the palace anytime to see me, and I will come visit you too. You're part of my family, Adanna. Adanna only nodded and looked away at the flowing water. In her heart, a storm was brewing. As she watched the water swirl around a rock in the current, a troubling thought crossed her mind, unbidden. If only things could go back to how they were before, when we were just two village girls without a care. If only Ojugo wasn't going to be a princess. She immediately felt guilty for the thought and stood up. It's getting late, she said. We should go home. Ojugo looked at her friend with concern. Yes, it's late. Let's go together. She took Adanna's hand as they walked back in the dusk, not knowing that within Adanna's troubled heart, a dangerous seed had been planted. The next morning, Adanna made up her mind. The turmoil in her heart had kept her awake through the night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw images of Ojugo wearing royal beads and smiling beside Prince Obidike, jealousy gnawing at her, consuming every rational thought. By dawn, Adanna's envy had twisted into a desperate resolve. She would do something to stop this, no matter how unthinkable. Adanna found Ojugo just after the sun had risen, helping her mother grind millet outside their kitchen hut. Trying to sound cheerful, Adanna greeted them and said, Ojugo, Nwannem, my sister, will you come with me to the river? I want to wash some clothes and fetch some water. The morning is cool and good for work. Ojugo wiped her hands and smiled. Of course. Mama, let me finish later. I will go and help Adanna first. She called to her mother, who nodded in approval. The two friends set off together down the familiar path to the river. The forest was alive with morning songs of birds. Sunlight filtered through the palm and iroko trees, casting dancing shadows on the red earth path. As they walked, Ojugo chatted about a new song she had heard the village girls singing, occasionally mimicking the dance steps, trying to make Adanna laugh. But today, Adanna's laughter was forced and thin. When they reached the river, It was quiet except for the gentle gurgling of water over smooth rocks. This was a spot a little further downstream from the main village bathing area. Adana had suggested they go further for cleaner water and more privacy. Ojugo, suspecting nothing, agreed. She loved the tranquility of this bend in the river, where a large cotton tree leaned over the water and purple hibiscus flowers grew along the banks. Ojugo set down the clay pot she had brought and stretched her arms. The water looked cool and inviting, she said with a smile. She knelt to dip the pot and let it fill. Adana stood a short distance behind her, watching her friend's back as Ojugo leaned over the water. Her heart was pounding erratically. Doubt and guilt suddenly washed over Adana. What was she thinking of doing? This was Ojugo, her best friend, her sister. Memories flashed in Adana's mind. Ojugo defending her when they were little, and Adana was accused of stealing guava fruit. It was actually a mischievous boy, and Ojugo had proven Adana's innocence. Ojugo staying up all night with her when she fell sick with malaria. Ojugo hugging her and wiping her tears the day Adana's grandmother died. Adana's eyes welled with tears at those memories. Her hands trembled. She almost turned away at that moment, ready to abandon the terrible plan and perhaps fall to her knees to beg Ojugo for forgiveness for even considering harm. But then another image flashed. Ojugo, radiant in royal attire, smiling, loved by everyone, while Adana stood alone in the shadows, forgotten and ordinary. A sort of bitterness overwhelmed Adana's hesitation. Her face hardened with resolve. Ojugo, she said, her voice oddly strained. Ojugo, still kneeling by the riverbank, looked back over her shoulder. She noticed Adana's expression and frowned with concern. Ada, are you alright? You are crying. Adana hadn't realized tears had indeed spilled down her cheeks. She hastily wiped them, her emotions swelling. Love, hurt, envy, all at once. I'm fine, she lied, her voice thick. She took a step closer, now directly behind Ojugo. Ojugo stood up, leaving the half-filled pot in the water. She reached out to touch Adana's arm gently. If something is bothering you, my friend, you know you can tell me. Don't hide your tears. It hurts me to see you like this. Hurts you? Adana suddenly snapped, pulling her arm away. Her voice rose, cracking with the weight of all her suppressed feelings. What about my hurt, Ojugo? Did you ever think of that? Did you think how I would feel watching you get everything, absolutely everything I ever wanted? Ojugo's eyes widened in shock at Adana's words and tone. She had never had such bitterness from her friend. Adana, what are you saying? What have I done? What have I gotten? You speak as if I took something from you. Adana let out a hollow laugh that sounded almost like a sob. You don't understand? How could you be so blind? You have love, you have attention, you have the prince, even the villagers. They look at me now like you are some golden girl, and me, I'm just there, always just there. Ojugo stepped closer, trying to hold Adana's hand, but Adana jerked away. Adana, have I ever made you feel like you were just there? You're my closest friend, my sister. Nothing in this world matters more to me than our friendship. Lies, Adana shouted, her voice echoing across the water. If I mattered so much, you'd have said no to the prince. Ojugo gasped softly, tears forming in her own eyes now. Why would I do that? Do you expect me to reject love and an honorable man's proposal for you? Adana, you are being unfair. I never wanted to hurt you. You should know that. Adana's hands clenched into fists. The thing she wanted to say, but could not voice, was, because I wanted him to. In truth, Adana had nursed a quiet admiration for Prince Obidike from afar, just as many girls in the kingdom had. But she could not bring herself to admit it openly. It would sound too selfish. Instead, she yelled, "You have taken everything. If you become queen, you will leave me behind. All our promises to always be together, they will mean nothing. Ojugo was openly crying now, confused and heartbroken by her friend's words. They will always mean something. I can never forget you or abandon you, Ada. Please, you must believe me. This is all in your mind. I would never. But Adanna was beyond reason. The jealousy and pain inside her had transformed into anger like a black cloud. As Ojugo tried to reach for her in comfort, Adanna's eyes fled. It's too late, Adanna hissed. If I can't be happy, then you will not be either. Before Ojugo could react, Adanna shoved her with both hands. One hard push, fueled by rage and sorrow. Caught completely off guard, Ojugo stumbled backward. Her foot slipped on the wet, muddy edge of the bank, and with a terrified cry, she stumbled into the water. There was a loud splash, and the calm quiet of the morning shattered. Ojugo disappeared under the surface with hardly a splash beyond a few ripples. The riverbank's muddy drop-off plunging into deep water unexpectedly. For a moment, Adanna stood frozen, her arms still outstretched from the push, as if she couldn't believe what she had just done. Ojugo! She screamed, a mixture of panic and regret in her voice. She scanned the river for any sign of her friend. Bubbles rose and popped on the surface. Then, Ojugo's head broke the water. She emerged, flaring, gasping and choking. Help! Ada! Ojugo tried to scream, but water filled her mouth. She had never learned to swim. The current at this deeper section was swift. Her arms thrashed as she struggled to stay afloat. Adanna was trembling violently on the bank. Part of her screamed, "Jump in and save her," but another part held her back, cold and fearful. If I save her, everything will be ruined. And what if we both drown? Her feet felt rooted to the soil as conflicting urges paralyzed her. Ojugo's head went under again. For a few seconds, only her hand was visible, desperately reaching out of the water as if pleading for anyone to grab it. Then, her hand too slipped beneath the surface. The river's flow continued as always, seemingly indifferent to the young life struggling within it. At that instant, a voice rang out from a short distance away. "Hey, what is happening there?" Through the trees, not far downstream, Mazi Akudo, a fisherman, had been gathering his nets in his canoe by the river's edge. Drawn by the shouting, he arrived just in time to witness the horrifying scene of Ojugo sinking beneath the water. He also caught a glimpse of Adanna standing on the bank above. Without wasting a second, Mazi Akudo dove into the water, his strong arms cutting through the current as he swam towards where Ojugo went under. Adanna saw the grey-haired fisherman plunge in. Panic seized her completely. If Ojugo was rescued, what would she say? Would she tell everyone what Adanna had done? Adanna's stomach clutched at the thought. No, she couldn't face that. In that moment, driven by sheer terror of the consequences, Adanna turned and ran. She fled back through the forest path, branches slapping at her as she stumbled and rushed away from the scene. Her heart pounded not just from running, but from the dreadful realization of what she had done. She prayed wildly under her breath, "Please, please, let her drown. Let no one ever find her." It was a horrific prayer, and tears streamed down Adanna's face as she sprinted, torn between remorse and the desperate hope to escape punishment. Meanwhile, Mazi Akudo dived deep, eyes open in a murky water. Initially, he saw nothing but his own bubbles and the dark shapes of weeds. Then, his hand brushed against fabric, Ojugo's wrapper. He grasped it firmly and pulled. Her limp form came into view, arms drifting as the current tugged at her, wrapping an arm around her waist. Mazi Akudo kicked hard for the surface. Breaking into the air, he drew in a sharp breath and hoisted Ojugo's head above water. She was unconscious, her eyes closed, and her body limp. No, 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 stay with me, he grunted, calling her, young woman. As he struggled to keep them both afloat, with determined strokes, he swung sideways to the bank, a short distance downstream from where she fell. Gasping, Mazi Akudo dragged Ojugo onto the grassy bank. Water streamed from her mouth and nose, and she wasn't breathing. The fisherman's heart clenched. He had seen enough drownings in his life to know time was precious. He quickly turned her on her side, pressing on her back to help drain water from her lungs. Ojugo's body was unresponsive. No, you will not die today, Mazi Akudo said firmly, though no one was there to hear except the river and the forest. He tilted Ojugo's head and began pressing down rhythmically on her chest with the heels of his hands, then lifted her jaw to blow air into her mouth, an old life-saving technique he had been taught by a trader from the coastal lands. He repeated this desperately, pressing and breathing, pressing and breathing. After tense moments that felt like an eternity, Ojugo coughed. A spurt of water came out of her mouth. She coughed again, sucking in a rich breath. That is it. Breathe, my daughter, breathe, Mazi Akudo encouraged, relief flooding him. He helped turn her gently as she vomited river water and began to choke out sobbing breath. Ojugo was alive. She blinked her eyes, disoriented and weak. Everything felt surreal. The last thing she remembered was Adana's furious face and the feeling of being pushed, then water closing over her head. Now, she was on the grass, coughing painfully, with Mazi Akudo's concerned face above her. You are safe now, the fisherman soothed. His voice was gentle, as if speaking to his own child. It's all right, I have you. Ojugo trembled violently, whether from cold or shock or both. Her lips were pale, and she was shivering. Mazi Akudo quickly pulled off his fishing jacket, a simple cloth tunic, and wrapped it around Ojugo's shoulder. Her wrapper was soaked and heavy, so he carefully squeezed excess water from it. After a few minutes, Ojugo's breathing steadied, but she was still in shock. She suddenly grabbed Mazi Akudo's arm with surprising strength. Ah, Adana, she sputtered between chattering teeth. She pushed me. Tears mixed with river water on her face. She looked around widely as if expecting to see her friend standing there. Mazi Akudo nodded. He had suspected as much from what he saw. I know, I saw her, my child, he said softly. Hearing it confirmed, Ojugo began to sob, her body shaking with cold and betrayal. Why would she do that? She cried, burying her face in her hands. The emotional pain of her best friend's betrayal hurt even more than her raw throat and burning lungs. Mazi Akudo gently patted her back. Easy now, don't worsen yourself. I do not know why someone so close would do this, but the important thing is you are alive. Ndo, sorry, you hear? Take heart. He spoke soothingly in a mixture of English and Igbo, as many elders did, comforting her. As Ojugo's sobs subsided to quiet whimpers, Mazi Akudo realized they shouldn't stay here. Adana had run off, likely back to the village. If the girl was wicked enough to harm her friend, who knew what she might say or do next? Also, Ojugo needed proper care and warmth immediately. With fatherly kindness, he helped Ojugo sit up. My house is just nearby by the riverside, he said. Let me take you there. My wife, Akugo, would help warm you up and give you some hot soup. You need to rest. Then, we must inform the Igwe and your family of what has happened. This evil cannot hide under the sun. Ojugo nodded weakly, allowing the fisherman to help her to her feet. She was unsteady, and he ended up lifting her in his arms when he saw she could barely walk. As Mazi Akudo carried the drenched and heartbroken girl towards his hut, the river flowed on behind them. The only witness to the crime that had just been committed, aside from the fisherman. The gentle sounds of the water belied the violence that had occurred moments before. Above, the sky was a perfect bright blue, as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed for Ojugo. She clung to Mazi Akudo, tears still slipping down her cheeks, and whispered, thank you, Nai, between shivers. He just held her and murmured, it is okay, my daughter. It is okay. But in his heart, he was already thinking of how to bring justice for this girl. The crime he witnessed must not go unpunished. Back in the village that fateful morning, Adana burst out of the forest path and into the edge of Omaworum, panting and dishevelled. Her wrapper was smeared with mud at the hem, and her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She stopped under a cassava shade to catch her breath and gather her wits. Think, Adana, think, she whispered to herself, pressing a hand to her chest as if to calm her racing heart. She knew Ojugo's mother had seen them leave for the river together. If she returned alone, questions would come. She had to come up with a story, and quickly. After a few minutes, Adana composed herself as best as she could. She adjusted her wrapper to hide the mud stains and wiped her face with trembling hands. Taking a deep breath, she walked towards Ojugo's compound with measured steps, forcing a casual expression onto her face, even though her insides were in turmoil. Ojugo's mother, Nneka, was outside pounding millet when she saw Adana approaching. The older woman smiled in greeting. Adana, una batago, you people have come back? Where is Ojugo? Did she stop on the way? Adana's heart jumped, but she managed to smile back. Good day, Mama. Yes, we came back. I came back. Ojugo said she wanted to stay a little longer by the riverside to finish washing some clothes. I was feeling tired, so I left her there. She said she would come back soon. The lies rolled off her tongue more easily than she expected, though her voice had a slight quiver. Nneka paused her pounding and wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. She looked a bit surprised. That was unlike her, but okay. She has been so happy these days. Maybe she wanted time to herself to think. The mother gave a small chuckle and resumed pounding, not suspecting anything amiss yet. Adana nodded weakly and excused herself. I will check on her later, Mama. Let me go and help my mother at home now. I will come back by noon if I don't see her. Okay, my daughter. Nneka replied, focusing on her work. Adana walked away, her legs feeling like yam porridge. She wanted nothing more than to run to her own hut and lock herself away. As she passed a cluster of huts, she saw two women from the village who waved at her. She waved back faintly, avoiding conversation. Her mind was consumed with anxiety. What if someone finds Ojugo? What if she survived? Each thought was a dagger of fear. Hours dragged by. By midday, word had spread that Ojugo had not returned from the river. Nneka and Ojugo's siblings had gone to the riverside to look for her. After Adana returned at noon with feigned concern and reported that she still hadn't seen Ojugo. At the riverbank, they found Ojugo's clay pot lying on each side by the water's edge, half filled with water, but no sign of Ojugo. Nneka raised an alarm, wailing in fear as other villagers gathered. Soon, a search party was formed. Men dove into the river, searching the depths for body, while others scoured the nearby forest, calling Ojugo's name. Adana joined the search, crying and shouting for her friend as convincingly as she could. In her heart, each cry of Ojugo was laced with a desperate guilt and the hope that no one would answer. By evening, the search had turned up nothing. Many feared the worst, that Ojugo had drowned and her body might have been carried downstream by the current. Some comforted Nneka, saying sometimes bodies surfaced after a day or two. Others speculated that perhaps water spirits, Mami Water, had taken the girl, for it was strange to not find a body. These discussions only intensified the family's distress. The news reached the Igwe's palace by nightfall. Prince Obidike, upon hearing that Ojugo was missing at the river, personally led another team of palace guards and villagers with lanterns to continue searching well into the night. They combed the riverbanks, the nearby woods, even beyond, calling out for Ojugo. Prince Obidike's voice grew hoarse from shouting her name into the darkness. Adanna was there too, staying just at the edge of the search party, her face wet with tears, some of genuine remorse and some of fear. When she saw the prince's anguish, her stomach twisted. He truly loves her and have destroyed them both, she thought. Finally, past midnight, Igwe Ochimba ordered the search to halt for the night so that people could rest. With plans to resume at first light, Prince Obidike returned to the palace, his eyes red and filled with worry. He could not sleep a wink. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ojugo's smiling face and then imagined her alone and scared in the cold darkness. He prayed fervently for her safety, though with each passing hour that hope dimmed. Adanna barely slept that night either. She lay in her bed, staring into the blackness of her heart, guilt pressed on her chest like a heavy stone. She had not anticipated the agony it would cause so many. She only thought of her own hurt, and now she had possibly killed her best friend. In the silence, she began to sob, muffling the sound with her pillow. "What have I done? Oh God, what have I done?" she whispered. But each time remorse rose, another thought countered it. If she leaves, everyone will know I tried to kill her. I will be cast out, or worse, my life is over if she returns. By dawn of the second day, the mood in Omawurun was grim. The search resumed, but hope was fading. Adanna realized that if no one found Ojugo, eventually they might accept she drowned. There might even be a memorial or mourning, but life would go on, and in that life, Prince Obidike would be without a bride. Perhaps he would notice someone else. That afternoon, Adanna gathered courage and made her way to the palace. She reasoned that she should show concern as a good friend, and also be close to Prince Obidike during this time. In her twisted hope, she imagined that maybe, as they comforted each other over their mutual loss, he might see her in a new light. At the palace gate, the guards knew Adanna as Ojugo's friend and allowed her entry, thinking she had come to offer information or condolences. She was escorted to a chamber where Prince Obidike stood by an open window, staring out at the palace grounds with a faraway look. His shoulders were slumped. He looked like a man who had aged overnight. Adanna felt a pang of guilt at seeing him so broken, but she stilled herself and softly announced her presence. "Your Highness, it's Adanna," she said gently. The prince stunned, and though he tried to put on a polite smile, his misery was evident. "Adanna, have you any news? Did you find her?" he asked urgently, hope flashing in his eyes that maybe Adanna's visit meant a development. Adanna shook her head slowly, casting her eyes down. "No, Your Highness. I'm sorry. We still haven't found her. I came to see how you are doing and to say how sorry I am. Ojugo was like a sister to me." She managed to make her voice quiver convincingly with sorrow as she stepped closer. Prince Obidike exhaled and turned back to gaze outside. "I am not well, Adanna. I cannot eat. I cannot rest. Thinking of her out there, or worse." His voice cracked. "I pray she's alive somehow, but..." He trailed off, unable to say more. Adanna moved a little closer. Her hands clasped in front of her. "I feel your pain. She was my best friend. This is all like a bad dream to me." That, at least, was not entirely a lie. It was a nightmare of her own making. The prince nodded, wiping a tear quickly from his eye. There was a silence. Finally, Adanna spoke, her tone gentle. "Your Highness, you must try to take care of yourself too. It pains me to see you like this." Prince Obidike looked at her with tired eyes. "How can I? Ojugo is gone." He swallowed hard against a lump in his throat. Adanna saw tears welling up again in his eyes and impulsively reached out to lay a hand on his arm. "We will all miss her," she said softly. "But you are not alone in this. I am here, Your Highness." The prince, absorbed in grief, didn't immediately react to the touch. Encouraged slightly, Adanna stepped even closer, now gently holding his arm with both hands. Obidike, she said, dropping the former title. It was the first time she had ever addressed him by name alone. "You're not alone," she repeated in almost a whisper, looking up at him. Prince Obidike blinked in surprise at the familiarity. Finally noticing how close Adanna had gotten, he gently pulled his arm away, frowning slightly. "Adanna." Adanna felt a surge of nervousness but pressed on. "I know this is sudden. It's just, I care about you. I ain't seen you suffer like this. I wish I could take away your pain." Her eyes searched his, and she mustered what she thought was a sympathetic, loving expression. Prince Obidike took a step back, confused. "Thank you for caring. I appreciate your concern as Ojugo's friend, but we must focus on finding her." Adanna moved toward him again, her voice dropping to a coaxing tone. "My prince, Obidike, perhaps you should rest. Even just for a short while. Let me stay by your side. I can help you forget the pain. Even if just for a moment." As she said this, she dared to lightly place a hand on his chest, looking up at him through her lashes. It took a moment for the prince to understand the implication. His eyes widened in disbelief and a flash of anger. He stepped back again, removing her hand firmly. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice edged with shock. Adanna felt her face burn. She tried to recover, forcing a sad smile. "I only mean we both lost someone there. We can comfort each other. You don't have to be alone tonight." She reached out as if to touch him again. Prince Obidike's sadness swiftly turned to fury as realization dawned that Adanna was making an advance on him. He raised his hand in a commanding gesture that stopped her in her tracks. "That is enough," he snapped. Adanna froze, her arm dropping limply to her side. She had never heard him speak so sharply. The prince's face was etched with anger and disgust. "What do you take me for, Adanna? How dare you insult Ojugo's memory like this?" he thundered. "It has barely been 2 days and you come here to..." He struggled to even say it. "To throw yourself at me? Are you mad?" Tears of humiliation sprang to Adanna's eyes. I'm sorry. I only thought..." she stammered, stepping back, suddenly terrified at his rage. "Guards!" Prince Obidike barked. 2 guards, who had been stationed just outside, rushed in, alarmed. Adanna panicked. "No, please," she pleaded, reaching out towards the prince in desperation. But he stepped away as if her touch were poison. He addressed the guards in a tight voice, trying to maintain control. "Escort Adanna out of the palace. She's not to set foot here again without the king's permission." The guards looked bewildered but obeyed. "Yes, your highness," they responded. One guard took Adanna gently but firmly by the arm. Adanna's composure crumbled. She began to sob openly now, realizing how badly she had miscalculated. "Forgive me, please, my prince," she cried, but Prince Obidike had turned away, his fist clenched and jaw tight with anger. She was led out of the chamber and through the palace gates, her wails echoing in the corridors. As the guards released her outside the gate, one shook his head at her in disapproval. Adanna fell to her knees in the palace courtyard, face in her hands, crying not only for her shame, but in dread. For she felt her desperate act might just invited greater suspicion upon her if Ojugo ever returned. After some minutes, she gathered herself and stumbled back to the village, banned from the one place she had hoped to belong. Adanna felt alone, trapped in a web of her own making. All she could do now was pray that Ojugo was truly gone forever, and that with time, perhaps everyone would move on and forget. It was a faint hope, and it brought her little comfort as she passed by the still river that evening on her way home, the setting sun casting a red glow on its water. The morning of the 3rd day dawned clear and bright over Umuawurum, as if nature itself was unaware of the turmoil that had gripped the kingdom. In a small hut near the river, Ojugo opened her eyes to find Mazi Akudo's wife, Akugo, tending a fire and heating up some herb-infused broth. Ojugo had spent the previous day drifting in and out of sleep, recovering under the couple's care. She was weak but alive, and endlessly grateful. "You are awake, my daughter," Akugo said kindly as she noticed Ojugo staring on the mat. "How do you feel?" "Better, Nnem. Thank you," Ojugo replied softly. Her body still ached and her heart felt heavy, but she was determined now. She could not hide here any longer. Her family would be in agony and the truth had to come out. Mazi Akudo entered the hut, duckling under the low doorway. "Ah, Ojugo, good. You have woken. You have more color in your cheeks today," he observed, pleased. "I'm feeling stronger, Mazi," she said respectfully. She sat up slowly, Akugo rushing over to help support her back. Ojugo's dark eyes were resolute. "I must go home. My family, they will think I'm dead. And the prince, they must all know that I am alive and know what truly happened." Mazi Akudo nodded. "I agree. I wanted you to rest yesterday, but today we can go. The gods have saved you. Now justice must take its course." He handed her a wooden cup of the warm broth. "Drink this first for a strength." As Ojugo sipped the bitter but invigorating brew, she bit her lip, anxiety flashing across her face. "Mazi, when we tell everyone, what do you think would happen to Adanna?" The fisherman's expression hardened slightly. "She will face the king's judgment. Attempted murder is an abomination in the eyes of our people, especially such betrayal. Whatever the Igwe decides, she must answer for her actions." Ojugo nodded sadly. Part of her, despite everything, felt sorrow for what was about to happen to her friend. But she also remembered the cold fury in Adanna's eyes as she pushed her into the river. That memory stilled Ojugo's resolve. She knew what Adanna did was not an accident or a momentary slip. It was intentional, driven by malice. Within the hour, Mazi Akudo had readied his canoe to ferry Ojugo across the river closer to the village, to save her the strain of walking all the way round to the bridge. He helped her into the canoe, wrapping a dry shawl around her shoulders to hide her still damp and torn clothes. Akugo pressed a bowl of porridge into Ojugo's hands for her to eat on the way, fusing over her as a mother would. Ojugo's eyes moist at the older woman's kindness. She thanked them both fervently, promising to visit again with proper gratitude once things were settled. They reached the village outskirts as the sun climbed higher. It was mid-morning when Mazi Akudo guided Ojugo to her family compound. As they approached, they saw a small crowd outside, neighbors consoling Ojugo's family who had resigned to mourning. Ojugo's mother, Nneka, was seated on a mat, eyes swollen from weeping, while her father, Mazi Ibekwe, stared listlessly at the ground. A few elders were quietly discussing arrangements for a search further downstream. Ojugo's heart clenched painfully at the sight. "Mama, Papa," she managed to whisper, tears welling up. One of the neighbors looked up and saw the approaching figures. Her eyes widened as if she had seen a spirit. "Chai, is that not Ojugo?" she exclaimed loudly. All heads turned. Nneka got to her feet unsteadily, seeing a young woman in a tattered muddy wrapper supported by Mazi Akudo. For a second, she too thought it was Ojugo's spirit who came to say goodbye. "Mama, it's me," Ojugo cried, breaking into a run towards her mother. With a scream of shock and joy, Nneka rushed forward and enveloped her daughter in a tight embrace. "Ojugo, Ojugo nwam, you are alive. Chineke daalụ." She sobbed violently, holding Ojugo as if she might disappear again. Her father and siblings crowded around, each trying to touch her to be sure she was real. Mazi Ibekwe, a stoic man, had tears running down his cheeks. "Oh, Nwamo, we thought we lost you," he choked out, taking her hand in both of his. Neighbor began shouting in excitement at the miracle of her return. People came running from nearby huts to see. Amid the commotion, Adana's parents, who lived only a compound away, also arrived, drawn by the noise. Adana's mother, seeing Ojugo alive, raised her hands to the sky in gratitude, unaware yet of her own child's involvement. After the first rush of emotion calmed slightly, Mazi Akudo cleared his throat and addressed those gathered. "Everyone listen," he said loudly. "We must go to the Igwe's palace at once. There is much to be told." Ojugo was saved from the river by God's grace, but what happened to her was no accident. His voice was grave. A shocked murmur rippled through the listeners. Nneka looked from the fisherman to her daughter, gently lifting Ojugo's chain. "No accident, Ojugo. What does he mean?" Ojugo trembled at the thought of speaking it aloud, but she gathered courage. "Mama, Papa, Adana tried to kill me. She pushed me into the river." Her voice broke as she spoke her friend's name. A stunned silence fell. Adana's mother staggered back as if struck. "Sophia Okwa, God forbid," she cried out. "No, it cannot be, not my Adana." Mazi Bekwe's face went pale with anger and disbelief. The neighbors gasped, some immediately casting suspicious, enraged looks towards Adana's compound. Adana's father, Iche Okafor, an elder, shook his head vehemently. "There must be a mistake. Our daughters are like sisters. Why would Adana do such a thing?" His voice was both defensive and pleading. Mazi Akudo raised a hand calmly. "I witnessed it with my own eyes. I saw Adana push her. If not for God placing me there at that moment, we would indeed be mourning Ojugo now. I am sorry," he directed at Adana's parents. "But that's the truth. Adana fled after pushing her." Adana's mother wailed in denial and despair, collapsing to the ground. Adana's father closed his eyes as if praying this was a bad dream from which he would wake. "We will go to the Igwe now," Mazi Bekwe said in a tight, controlled voice. Anger sitting under his composure. Let the truth be known to all. The king would decide what to do. Mazi Akudo and Ojugo's father supported Ojugo as they led the way to the palace. A throng of villagers followed, fueled by curiosity and outrage. Word spread like Harmattan wildfire. Ojugo is alive. It was Adana who pushed her into the river. With each telling, voices grew more angry at the betrayal that had taken place in their midst. In the royal palace courtyard, Prince Obidike was pacing restlessly, exhausted but still determined to organize another search effort. He was speaking with a guard captain when another guard sprinted in, eyes wide with excitement. "My prince, good news. Ojugo has returned. She's alive, and she's coming here with her family and many villagers." Prince Obidike thought he had misheard. "What did you say? Alive? Ojugo?" His heart leaped, and he grabbed the guard's shoulders. "Is this true?" "Yes, your highness. She's at the gate right now with her parents and the fisherman who found her." Without another word, Prince Obidike broke into a run towards the palace gate, the guard and captain following behind. He reached the entrance just as Ojugo, pale and leaning on her father's arms, came into view. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Ojugo lifted her eyes and met Obidike's gaze. The prince's face went from disbelief to overwhelming relief and joy. "Ojugo!" he shouted, rushing forward. He caught himself from completely embracing her in front of the crowd, instead taking her hand. "You are alive! You are alive!" he repeated, voice trembling. Ojugo managed a smile through her tears. "I am, your highness." Prince Obidike laughed in pure joy. Unable to contain himself, he put her into a gentle, brief embrace. Decorum be damned. Then held her at arm's length to inspect her, as if to ensure she wasn't a figment of his imagination. "You are hot." He noticed the bruises on her arms and the exhaustion in her face. His expression turned concerned and angry at once. "Who did this? How did you survive?" "Let us all go inside so she can sit and speak, came a commanding but kind voice. King Ochimba, alerted by the commotion, had come out to the courtyard with some palace elders. He was a tall man with a greying beard, wearing a richly woven wrapper and a red cap adorned with an eagle feather. Despite his age, his presence was powerful. The crowd parted respectfully. Ojugo and her parent, Mazi Akudo and Prince Obidike, moved towards the central court. Servants quickly brought a cushioned stool for Ojugo, and the prince helped her sit. Many villagers gathered at a slight distance, murmuring among themselves, while the king's council of elders formed a semicircle. Igwe Ochimba raised a hand for silence. We thank the gods that this young woman has returned alive. Ojugo, my daughter, we have mourned you for this. Now, we hear there is more to your disappearance. Take your time and tell us what happened. Ojugo took a shaky breath, with Prince Obidike still holding one of her hands reassuringly, and her parent by her side. She recounted the harrowing tale in a clear but quavering voice. She told of how Adana invited her to the river, how at first they talked normally, then how Adana grew angry, shouted hurtful things, and finally, with tears streaming down Ojugo's face, she described how her best friend shoved her into the deep water. The court was silent except for a few gasps of disbelief and outrage. Mazi Akudo then stepped forward to give his eyewitness account. He described seeing the push, Adana's flight, and how he saved Ojugo from drowning. When he finished, the king's face was dark with fury. Igwe Ochimba rose from his seat, leaning on his elephant tail fly whisk, and a symbol of authority. This is a grave matter, he said, voice low and thunderous. A daughter of Omaworum committing such a betrayal against her own sister, her best friend, and against the royal family's hope as well. Unheard of, unforgivable. He turned to one of the guards. Send men to bring Adana here at once, in chains if you must. Adana's father, Ichie Okafor, who stood at the side looking utterly stricken, knelt and pleaded, Igwe, please, have mercy. Let the guard bring her, but she does not need chains. I will call her. She's my daughter. Perhaps there is an explanation. His voice faltered. Not even he believed his words. The Igwe regarded the elder coldly. Ichie Okafor, because of the respect I have for you, my old friend, I will allow you to fetch her. But if she attempts to flee or resist, she will be dragged here. Now, go quickly. Ichie Okafor bowed his head in gratitude and hurried off with two guards following to ensure Adana was brought. Prince Obidike's face was as stormy as the king's. All this time, he stood beside Ojugo, unwilling to let go of her hand, as if reassuring himself she was truly there and safe. Now he spoke, voice filled with hurt and anger. I just cannot understand it. Adana of all people. She was always by Ojugo's side. Why would she do this? Ojugo shook her head sadly. She feared that you choosing me meant she would lose me and be left behind. She was jealous, my prince. Igwe, she said, turning to include the king. Speaking those words made her heart ache all over again. I loved her like a sister, but she couldn't see beyond her envy. Igwe Ochimba sighed deeply, eyes closed for a moment. Jealousy, the green-eyed monster. It has caused more death and destruction than we can count. What a tragedy. Not long after, a commotion at the gate signaled Adana's arrival. Two guards flanked a young woman whose face was devoid of color. Adana walked as if in a trance, led by her father holding her arm. When she reached the courtyard and saw Ojugo alive, sitting next to Prince Obidike and the rest of her community staring at her, Adana's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the ground. Ojugo, she croaked, eyes wide in terror. She looked like she had seen a ghost. For a moment, she simply knelt there, shaking her head slowly as tears filled her eyes. It can't be. I thought you dead. Ojugo finished for her, voice quiet and full of pain. You thought you killed me? At those words, Adana bent over and pressed her forehead to the dust, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, she wailed. Her parents stood to the side, her mother quietly crying and her father looking as if he aged 10 years in a day. Two guards lifted Adana by the arms to make her stand properly before the king. She kept her head lowered, too ashamed to meet anyone's gaze. Her once neatly tied headscarf was askew and her wrapper stained from kneeling on the ground. The contrast to the lively, proud young woman she had been was pitiable. King Ochimba's voice rang out, formal and stern. Adana, daughter of Ichie Okafor, you have heard the accusations against you. Look up and answer truthfully. Did you or did you not lure Ojugo to the river and push her in, intending to kill her? Adana lifted her face to speak, and those who saw her were taken aback by how wretched she looked, her eyes red and swollen, hair unkempt, cheeks stained with tears. In a broken voice, she confessed, Igwe, I did it. I pushed her. A collective gasp and murmurs rose from the gathered crowd. Even though they had expected this, the reality of her admission still shocked them. Silence, commanded an elder. And the muttering died down. The king's face was like stone. Why? What evil entered your heart to do this? Adana sniffled, glancing towards Ojugo for a split second before looking down again. Jealousy, my king, she answered miserably. I was blinded by jealousy. Ojugo was everything to me, but then she had everything I ever wanted. I lost myself in bitterness. I thought I was losing her and I wanted to hurt her for it. I have no excuse. I have committed an abomination against my own blood, my sister, my friend, and against the prince. Her voice cracked. I deserve any punishment. I only beg for forgiveness, even if I am not worthy of it. She broke down in sobs again. Prince Obidike stared at Adana, his expression a mix of anger and pity. You deceived us all, he said quietly. We all trusted you. I trusted you. I even felt sorry for you. And all the while, you were the cause of our pain. Adana, you have not only broken Ojugo's heart, but you nearly killed her and destroyed many others. How could you do this? Adana could not answer, only cry harder, covering her face with her hands. Igwe Ochimba rose to his feet, raising his fly whisk. Adana, for the crime of attempted murder and breach of the sacred trust of friendship and unity in our land, you would be well within our laws to face death or banishment. Such wickedness cannot be allowed to take root in Omawurum. Adana's mother cried out, Igwe, please, and fell to her knees. But a glare from the king's guard silenced further interruption. The king continued, however, I will pronounce judgment. Adana, you are hereby banished from the kingdom of Omawurum forever. You shall be taken to far boundaries of our land and cast out. Should you ever return, you will face death. This is my judgment. A heavy silence followed his words. Adana slumped, swaying on her feet, as if she might faint. Banishment, exile from the only home she had ever known, away from her family, to live alone with her guilt. It was a harsh sentence, but perhaps more merciful than execution. Some villagers nodded in agreement with the verdict, while others whispered that she deserved worse. Adana's father bowed low, tears streaming down his face. Thank you, Igwe, for sparing her life. We accept your judgment. Two guards stepped forward to take Adana away to a holding place until she could be escorted out of the kingdom. As they grabbed her arms, Adana suddenly looked towards Ojugo, eyes bleeding. Ugo, I know I don't deserve it, but please forgive me, she cried in despair. I'm so sorry, my sister. I was wrong. I was very wrong. Ojugo had been watching the proceeding with silent tears. Her heart ached, seeing the friend she once loved reduced to this. At Adanna's plea, she stood, gently pulling her hand free from Prince Obidike's. She took a few steps towards Adanna, the crowd watching in hushed surprise. "Adanna," Ojugo said softly, looking at her dear friend's tortured face one last time. I forgive you." A ripple of shock went through onlookers at Ojugo's words. Even Adanna's eyes widened in surprise. Ojugo's voice trembled as she continued. "We grew up together. We were sisters. You are my sister. My heart is heavy with what you did, but I cannot hate you. I will pray for you." Her voice broke and she wiped a tear. "May you find peace, Adanna, and may the gods have mercy on you." Adanna let out a wail and would have collapsed to the ground again if not for the guards holding her. "Thank you. I am sorry. I am so sorry," was all she could say, over and over as they began to lead her away. Ojugo's mother put an arm around her daughter, both of them crying quietly as they watched Adanna being taken out of the palace courtyard in disgrace. Many villagers shook their heads at the tragic sight, some feeling a measure of sympathy despite their anger, others satisfied that justice was served. Igwe Ochimba sighed, sitting back down heavily. "This matter is concluded. Let no one speak a word to Adanna until she is escorted out of our land, and let this serve as a lesson to all of us about the dangers of envy." He then turned to Ojugo, his stern expression softening to one of compassion. "My child, you have suffered greatly. You should return home and rest. You are under the protection of the royal house now. Whatever you need will be provided." Prince Obidike added quickly, "Father, with your permission, I would like Ojugo and her family to stay in the palace for a few days as our guest. They have endured a terrible ordeal. I want to ensure Ojugo recovers fully." He gazed at Ojugo with such tenderness that a few people hid smiles behind their hands. The king gave a small knowing smile and nodded. "Granted, the queen and I will also want to properly meet and bless this brave young woman who has captured our son's heart." He stood and raised his voice to address the gathering. "Go home now, all of you. Rejoice that Ojugo is safe. Prepare a feast tonight in thanksgiving to the gods for her safe return." A cheer rose from the crowd. The somber mood began to lift as people realized a celebration was in order. The same villagers who yesterday were in mourning now sang praises to Chukwu for this miracle. Many came up to Ojugo to hug her or clasp her hands in joy, before dispersing to spread the happy news and start preparations for feasting. As the palace courtyard cleared of the public, Ojugo found herself surrounded by her family and Prince Obidike. He gently touched the side of her face, where a bruise from the river's rocks was fading. "You are the bravest, kindest soul I know," he said quietly. "Even after all that, you forgave her." Ojugo managed a small smile. "My heart would have no peace if I held on to hate. I love her. I hope she finds her way someday." A tear escaped her eyes. Prince Obidike wiped her tear with his thumb and then, realizing her parents were right there, stepped back slightly with a respectful bow to them. "Mazi Ibekwe, Nne, I thank you for raising such a wonderful daughter. She's a jewel to our kingdom." Ojugo's father nodded in gratitude and respect. "We are thankful to have her back, and thankful to you and the gods that she is safe. You have our blessing, Your Highness, for everything." He glanced at his daughter and the prince meaningfully. Prince Obidike smiled broadly, understanding the unspoken acceptance of him as Ojugo's suitor once more. Though this was not exactly the scenario he imagined for a formal betrothal, his heart swelled with happiness. "I'll do everything in my power to make her happy and keep her safe," he vowed. Ojugo's cheeks warmed as the prince's words sank in. Despite all the sorrow of the past days, in that moment, she felt an overwhelming surge of joy and hope. She silently thanked God and her personal spirit for guiding Mazi Akudo to save her and for giving her this second chance at life and love. A few months later, Umawurum was once again filled with celebration, this time a joyous occasion that healed the wounds of the past. The day had finally come for Prince Obidike to take Ojigo as his wife. The entire kingdom buzzed with excitement. Not only was it a royal wedding, it was the union of two souls that had overcome tragedy and emerged stronger. The traditional marriage ceremony began in Ojugo's family compound under a canopy of palm fronds and colorful fabric. Ojugo sat among a circle of young maidens, all dressed in beautiful attire. She was the picture of Igbo elegance and pride. Her outfit drew admiring gasps. She wore a gorgeously embroidered blouse of velvet red and two wrappers of rich George fabric. The top wrapper was a deep purple with gold patterns shimmering in the sunlight, and the lower one a lighter hue that complemented it. Around her waist, jingled layers of jigida, waist beads peeking through, and over her neck and wrist hung heavy coral beads, signifying that she was the bride, the star of the day. Her hair was styled up and woven with the threads, adorned with a delicate crown of coral beads that framed a halo around her head. Her face glowed with youthful happiness. A shy smile never far from her lips. Nneka hovered nearby, overcome with emotion as she fussed over Ojigo's appearance, adjusting a coral bead here, tucking a loose hair there. "Imaramma, mwam. You look beautiful, my daughter," she said, using an Igbo expression for exceptional beauty. Ojigo squeezed her mother's hand. "Thank you, Mama." In the distance, the rhythm beat of drums and the melodious call of the ogene announced the arrival of the groom's party. Prince Obidike arrived with his entourage of royal relatives, friends, and elders. He was resplendent in his attire, a dark red Isiagu shirt with gold embroidery that fit his strong frame, a black face-like cap with a long white eagle feather signifying his princely status, and around his neck, a thick rope of coral beads rested on his chest. He carried a carved walking stick, a symbol of dignity, though he was young and energetic. By his side, Igwe Ochimba and the Queen Lolo Ifunanya walked proudly. The king in a bright patterned wrapper and ceremonial red cap, and the queen in a flowing George dress with a head wrap that sparkled. The guests settled under the shade of Udala and mango trees. Laughter and chatter filled the air as kola nut was presented and broken by the elders, a sacred ritual to bless the gathering. Palm wine flowed freely from earthen jugs, and the aroma of rich soups and stews wafted from cooking pots, awaiting the feast to come. Now came the highlight of the Ebanko, the wine carrying ceremony. Ojigo took a calabash cup of palm wine poured by her father. According to tradition, she had to find her groom among the crowd of guests and offer him the wine. With graceful steps, Ojigo moved through the assembled guests, feigning uncertainty as custom dictated, while onlookers teased and cheered. Prince Obidike stood at the far end of the yard, trying to remain composed. His friends joked by switching places and calling out, "Ojugo, are you looking for me? I am here." She played along, smiling and shaking her head at each false groan. Then her eyes met Obidike's. In that moment, with everyone watching, the world seemed to fall away for just the two of them. Ojugo walked straight towards her prince. When she reached him, she dropped to one knee and offered the cup with both hands, her eyes shining with love and a touch of playful triumph. Prince Obidike accepted the cup, placing his hand beneath hers as he did. "Thank you, my love," he said softly, just for her ears. He drank the wine, sealing their union in the eyes of tradition. As the crowd erupted in cheers, he gently pulled Ojugo up and, unable to resist, gave her a brief hug, which earned even louder cheers and laughter from the guests. With the bride successfully finding her groom, the elders formally blessed the couple. Gifts of yam tubers, goats, and fabric were exchanged between the two families in good spirit. Fulfilling custom, King Ochimba himself presented Mazi Bekwe with 6 shining new brass bells and a bag of gold cowries, traditional currency, a generous bride price, and token of appreciation. Though in truth, the friendship between the royal family and Ojugo's family had already been cemented by the trials they overcame. During the reception that followed, the entire village joined in the merriment. Women danced gracefully, waving white handkerchiefs, and men took turns performing the vigorous Atilogo dance, flipping and kicking to the drum's thunder. Mazi Akudo, the fisherman, was given a place of honor next to Ojugo's parents. At one point, Prince Obidike himself walked over to the old man and in front of everyone, presented him with a special gift, a carved wooden paddle painted with royal colors, and a title sash. From this day forward, the prince announced, Mazi Akudo will be known as Ogbuefi Akudo, a reward for his bravery and selflessness. Ogbuefi was a title reserved for distinguished individuals in Igbo land, often those who had performed great deeds. The crowd applauded joyfully as Mazi Akudo stood and bowed, tears of gratitude in his eyes. Ojugo watched this scene with happiness overflowing in her heart. She thought of how this kind man had saved her life. Now he was being honored and would never want for anything. The prince had privately promised her that the fisherman and his wife would be taken care of by the palace for the rest of their days. As the sun began to set, casting golden light on the jubilant faces, Ojugo and Prince Obidike prepared to depart for the palace as husband and wife. Ojugo changed into a simpler lightweight wrapper for the journey, but kept her coral beads and a smaller headpiece. She bid farewell to her family. There were tears and hugs, for she would now live in the palace, though she promised to visit often. Nneka hugged her longest, whispering motherly advice and blessings in her ear, before finally letting her go with a watery smile. A royal carriage drawn by 4 white horses waited to carry the couple through the kingdom street. As they climbed in, villagers lined the path singing songs of blessings. Sitting beside Prince Obidike in the carriage, Ojugo felt a gentle squeeze on her hand. She turned to him and he smiled. "Are you happy, my wife?" he asked softly. She smiled back, a smile that reached deep into her eyes. "More than I ever imagined I could be," she replied. "Thank you for everything." He shook his head. "I should be thanking you. You have brought light into my life. After so much darkness, we will make a good life together, I promise you." The carriage rolled forward, and as they waved to the cheering crowd, Ojugo caught sight of one figure at the back of the gathering who wasn't cheering. It was Adanna's father, Ichie Okafor, standing quietly with Adanna's mother beside him. They tried to smile for Ojugo, but she could see sorrow in their faces, sorrow that their own daughter could not be here on this day. Ojugo's joy was tinged with that thought. She prayed silently that wherever Adanna was, she would find healing for her heart. Despite the pain Adanna caused, Ojugo hoped that one day, perhaps, the gods might allow their paths to cross again, in kinder circumstances. As the kingdom of Umuawurum celebrated late into the night, the newly married couple arrived at the palace. They stepped down from the carriage under a canopy of twinkling stars. The prince helped Ojugo out, and before they entered the grand palace doors, Prince Obidike paused. He gently turned Ojugo to face him beneath the soft glow of lantern light. "You have been through so much, Ojugo," he murmured. "Now begins a new chapter. Are you ready?" Ojugo looked into his eyes, the same kind eyes that had recognized her in the market and admired her dance all those months ago. So much had happened since then, yet here they were together at last. She nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder for a moment. "With you by my side, I'm ready for anything." Prince Obidike smiled and kissed her forehead tenderly. Hand in hand, they crossed the threshold into the palace, welcomed by the cheers of attendants and the warm embrace of the queen, who awaited her new daughter-in-law. That night, as Ojugo lay in the royal chambers, head resting on Obidike's shoulder, she reflected on the twists and turns of fate. She felt grateful to the Almighty and to her ancestors for watching over her. In her heart, she made a wish that Adanna too would someday find peace and perhaps redemption. Umuawurum slept peacefully under the same sky that had witnessed treachery and now triumph. The moon cast a gentle light over the kingdom as if blessing the union of the prince and his bride. And while this chapter of their lives had closed with joyous celebration, Ojugo and Prince Obidike knew that life held many more stories in store for them, stories of joy and challenges, and of sorrow and hope. For now, they would savor the happiness of the moment, content in each other's love, as the ancient kingdom of Omawurum prepared to greet a new dawn full of promise. Their tale was only just beginning, and whatever the future brought, they would face it together, hand in hand, with hearts as united as the sun and moon in the sky, ready to write the next lines of their story with every rising sun. The story of Ojugo and Adanna teaches us that jealousy is a dangerous feeling that can destroy even the strongest friendship. It shows that true friends should support each other, not compete out of envy. Ojugo's kindness and forgiveness brought her blessings, while Adanna's wickedness led to shame and punishment. The story reminds us that no matter how hard someone tried to destroy your happiness, what is meant for you will always find you. It also teaches that forgiveness brings peace and that people with good hearts are always protected by God and the community. In the end, love, truth, and justice will always win. Thank you so much for watching this amazing story about Ojugo and Adanna on African Stories by V. If you liked it and felt inspired with their journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories by V, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.